Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Elena Allsrew. Some of you may know me on Instagram at ElenaRose620. I wanted to thank all of you who decided to subscribe to my channel, and I'm very excited to share my first how-to training video with you guys. My first how-to video is going to feature the sandbag. The sandbag is one of my most favorite tools to use for cardio, but also for strength training. A couple weeks ago, I was kind of shocked myself and people around me. I was able to lift almost a 2-time body weight sandbag and pick it up and carry it for 60 feet. After that, Brian came up to me and he was like, hey, maybe you would have some helpful things to share with people who have a smaller frame to help them as the sandbag continues to get heavier. And I was like, okay, I'm excited because I do have this event coming up at USS Nationals in 2 weeks. The sandbag's on my mind and I love training with it. So hopefully some of what I've learned could be very helpful to you guys for overall fitness, but also for building strength. Please join me. But before I get into the how-to, I did want to share that I have learned so much from failing at the sandbag. I'm gonna flash this back real quick to my first sandbag event at US Nationals 2 years ago, 2017. I totally fell on my face. So I just wanted to let you guys know this is something I have worked at for a long time to get better at, but it was pretty comical if you were there. I was running so hard and I definitely tripped and fell. So later I'm gonna show you guys my 200-pound sandbag pick and carry that I was super proud of. Thank you so much for joining me. So the first step in the how-to video is step 1, the setup. So just like any other lift, the most important thing you can do is make sure you're in the right position when you go to do the lift. So the first thing that I want to do is make sure that my feet, so here's my 2 feet, are midline with the sandbag. So if I've got the sandbag here, my feet are here. And then I want to make sure that the middle of my feet line up with the middle of the sandbag. So that's foot position. If your feet are too far forward, the sandbag is going to roll back. And if your feet are too far back on the sandbag is going to roll forward. So it's just about making sure that your feet are in the middle of the sandbag. Then move on to the second part. The next part of making sure that you pick up the sandbag correctly is breathing and bracing. So if some of you have watched Brian's videos on breathing and bracing, you will know that it's crucial to all of the lifts we do and it keeps you very safe. So for me, when I go to pick up a sandbag, my feet are in the right position. I'm gonna take a deep belly breath, filling your belly, your diaphragm with as much air as you can fill it. And that's the second part. That is so important, and I cannot stress that enough to you. The third part of the setup is hand position. So just like your feet are lined up in the middle of the sandbag, your hands are gonna follow suit. So you're gonna take your hands and almost like, this is kind of how my hands are, slightly cupped, just like this. I'm gonna take them and I'm going to shove them underneath the sandbag. What some people will do is take the bag and roll it to the side and try to get your hands as far under as you can. That's especially when the sandbag is really heavy so you can get a good grip. Before I move on, I'm just gonna review real fast the 3 things to think about when you are going to pick up a sandbag. The first thing is foot position, second thing is breathing and bracing, and the third thing is your hand position. When I'm lifting, for me, it's about 80% of my max sandbag or less. I'm going to be using that particular pick. When I start to lift weights that are about 1.5 times body weight or above 80%, I like to do what you call a cradle method. And especially when I do a 150, a 175, or a 200-pound sandbag, I am getting as deep as I can. I'm taking my hand and cupping it underneath one side, keeping my arm straight. And then what I'm doing is taking my non-dominant hand and I'm scooping. So it's like this scoop, almost like I'm gonna pick up my dog from the floor. I scoop the head under and I pick up the dog, and the dog is awkward, right? So if I'm picking up Nala from the ground, I'm gonna scoop her head and hold her body and hoist her up. The second part I wanna talk about today is the pick. So this part is crucial. At this point, your hands are underneath the sandbag, you've got a really good position, and then what I want you to think about is the breathe and brace. So many people, when they bend over, they lose their air. So what I like to tell people to do is, even if you're down there, get a nice big breath, big belly breath, fill that diaphragm with air and tense. So that's gonna keep you safe. So the next thing to think about, the next thing that I do is I begin to push the ground away, just like we'd cue you on a demo start to push the ground away, and that bag is gonna come up. And as that bag comes up, one thing that I see people do is they're bending their arms still. There's really no need for that. So if you got a good grip with your hands, your arms are straight. So, and the other thing that that's doing is minimizing the distance that you have to lift it. So it's almost like when you drop under on an overhead press, you're just minimizing the distance that you have to press. So this to me it works for me to think about. I'm just minimizing the amount of space and energy that I'm expending. So I pull up the sandbag, I keep my arms straight, and then what I'm doing is I'm getting that sandbag over top of my knees, and then I'm bending. As I'm bending and placing the sandbag on top of my knees, I'm pulling in my feet. So they're in a very athletic stance, and then you're kind of set there with that sandbag on top of your quads. The next thing that you want to do is take a 10 and 2 position. So I take my hands, I go 10 and 2 on the sandbag as it's long ways, and I'm able to crush that and minimize the distance between the sandbag and my hips. So I'm pulling the sandbag in and bringing it closer and closer and closer to my body, because when something is closer to the midline of your body, you're automatically going to be more stable and have the most amount of strength. Just to recap, this one was a little bit longer. So for the pick, I am rebreathing and bracing. Then I am pushing the ground away as I'm keeping my arms straight, getting the sandbag onto my knees. Then what I'm doing is pulling my feet in and then minimizing the distance between the sandbag and my body as I begin to take my hands and go 10 and 2. And that is the sandbag pick and lap. So the third part of this how-to is the stand up. Now, before you go to stand up with the sandbag, it's very important that you're holding that sandbag nice and tight to your body. And one of the ways that I feel like really helps me is to think about spreading my hands out and pulling my hands towards my lats. If that makes any sense, it's almost like pulling them towards your rib cage. So almost kind of like your hands are like your rib cage and you're pulling towards your rib cage. And what that's gonna do is engage your lats. So as I'm pulling, I'm flexing my lats and allowing that sandbag to be real tight, pulling my hands towards my rib cage. Then what I typically do is I stick my hips out and then I use all the power I can to thrust them forward and thrust the sandbag as high up on my chest as I possibly can. And I have found that is super effective in getting the height that I need to be able to hold the sandbag up there as long as I possibly can. A lot of people will front squat that sandbag up, and to be honest, that is what I do for lighter weights. But when the weight is so hard to hold on to and it's like sliding down, have you ever held something that just keeps sliding down? It's actually extremely distracting. So for me, I like to take the extra couple seconds and make sure that I'm not distracted and make sure that that weight's not gonna fall. I've made that mistake before and I don't wanna make it again. So just real quick to recap the stand up, the most important parts are crush, then hinge, and then hips through. The fourth and final thing is the walk. So just like the second step, what I always make sure I do is get that breath. I make sure I get a nice deep belly breath as best as I can. If I hadn't been able to hold my breath that long, I need to rebreathe. So you do lose some precious time, but I do take another nice deep breath. I hold it, I keep my head neutral. I'm engaging my lats and crushing that sandbag to my chest, and now I am walking. And when I walk, I lean back just a little bit, tighten my butt, and engage my hamstrings. The best part is my knees are not hitting the sandbag as I'm walking. So just real quick to recap, before you go to walk, you breathe and brace, you engage your lats once again, and you lean back, keeping the head neutral and engaging your hamstrings as you're going. Thank you so much for listening to this how-to video for the sandbag. My name is Elena Allsrew. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this can be helpful to those of you who have a little bit of a smaller frame and have been having some trouble with your sandbag pick and carry. And to those of you who may not be into strongman but have a medicine ball or a lighter sandbag and want to do some cardio with it, you can totally use this for that. Anytime that you're running with some type of weight or moving with something weight, especially an odd weight, it's an incredible workout. It's gonna get your heart rate up, it's gonna increase your strength, and also it's really fun. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it can help some of you guys get a little bit better at what you love to do. Thank you so much for joining me. Bye.